Thanks to Third Love for supporting Mueller, She Wrote. Third Love knows there's a perfect bra for everyone, so right now they're offering our listeners 15% off their first order. Go to thirdlove.com/AG to find yours today. And thanks to Buffy for supporting Mueller, She Wrote. For $20 off your Buffy comforter, visit buffy.com and enter promo code AG. And finally, thanks to Brewmate for supporting Mueller, She Wrote. Brewmate wants to create the perfect drinking experience and to keep every sip of your drink refreshing. Brewmate is giving our listeners a special discount of 15% off your first order when you go to www.brewmate.com and use code AG at checkout.
So to be clear, Mr. Trump has no financial relationships with any Russian oligarchs.
That's what he said. That's what I said. That's obviously what our position is.
I'm not aware of any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate at a time or two in that campaign, and I did not have communications with the Russians.
What do I have to get involved with Putin for? I have nothing to do with Putin. I've never spoken to him. I don't know anything about him other than he will respect me. Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
So, it is political. You're a communist.
No, Mr. Green. Communism is just a red herring. Like all members of the oldest profession, I'm a capitalist.
Hello and welcome to Mueller, She Wrote. I'm your host, AG. And with me, as always, is Jaleesa Johnson.
Hello.
And Jordan Coburn.
Hello.
This week was like a Smiths song, honestly. It started out rainy and gray. All of us were depressed about last week's Manafort sentencing. But then Wednesday happened and it morphed into more of like a Lin-Manuel Miranda situation with Judge Jackson sentencing Manafort for a little more reasonable amount of time. We have a Rick Gates update this week. We have all sorts of stuff. Stone gag order hearing happened this week. Lots of news. Michael Flynn had his update. Big week. Big week for the Mueller probe. And we heard a lot of peripheral stuff, too, including Nancy Pelosi saying she's not all about impeachment and the media freaking out, calling her inconsistent, which is the furthest thing from reality because she's never been for it. And I think that was more of a political stunt, like a play, to be like, you're not even worth it, bro. But she left the door open in case something in the Mueller report comes out that's like, oh, you're worth it now. So I thought that was a really well played because it kind of takes away the Republicans' ability to say they're crazy about impeachment. They got pitchforks and torches and the crazy mob of Democrats, you know.
Yeah. At the same time, though, it did really piss off a lot of Democrats.
It did. And we're like, what the fuck?
And they're just sitting here holding out.
Yeah.
That's what Nancy's here for, though. She's playing the long game. She knows what she's doing.
Yeah, I think so. I think so, too. And like I said, and she made it clear, you know, right now, as I see it, you're not worth it. Because she doesn't have the votes in the Senate, right? Well, she does not in the Senate, but we don't have the votes in the Senate to remove. You have to have 67 votes, I think.
Right, so he won't actually be impeached as of now.
He'll be impeached, but he wouldn't be removed.
Right.
So it's not worth it. But if something happens to where that moves the needle, maybe the White Horse prophecy, which I'll talk about later, or, something, that Mueller report comes out, or maybe some huge sweeping RICO indictments or something that would change minds. And then she's left the door open to impeach at that point.
Yeah, I think what she says that gets mistook as her saying that she doesn't think he even could be impeached.
Right.
And then it's like, hey, what the fuck? Everyone freaks out. Like, come on, what are we here for? What's happening?
I know. I initially tweeted it out, and I was like, what fresh hell?
Fresh hell?
Yeah,
I saw that. I
what
like
fresh
that.
hell is this? And everyone was like, you leave Aunt Nancy alone. And I was like, what?
Jesus.
Okay, all right. Delete,
They gave you the
tweet.
Nancy clap, you know?
Yeah.
She
Tweet
needs
deleted.
bodyguards like that. She has very weak arms.
She knows what she's doing. Why don't you trust her? Okay. All right. And then we found out about another investigation into Trump. This time it's the New York Attorney General working with Deutsche Bank, taking a hard look at all the loans they doled out to Trump over the years. My beans are on the prosecutors looking into whether or not Trump inflated the valuation of his assets to defraud the bank and secure a loan. Something Manafort's going to prison for. So we know it's a crime, albeit he's not going for long enough. But lying to a bank, telling them you're worth more than you are to get a bigger loan is a goddamn felony. So we look forward to that.
He's like, I wasn't going to do anything with it. I just wanted people to think I was cool.
I didn't need it. I just wanted it now.
Yeah, don't send me to jail. Give me a hug.
It's an emergency at my golf course. Jaleesa, you have a report on a Trump lawsuit. And Jordan, you're going to be doing all the Stone stuff this week. And joining us for the interview this week is Natasha Bertrand. She's an MSNBC contributor. You've seen her on Maddow and several other shows. She's a staff writer for The Atlantic, and she'll be joining us live at the D.C. Miracle Theater.
Yeah.
On, what's that, March 29th. Oh, my God, that's so close. I'm so excited.
I love every time I see her pop up on TV, which is all the time.
Yeah. VIP sold out for that, by the way, but you can still come.
Yeah, get your tickets now.
Yeah, get them now. Get them now. And for upcoming shows, too. And if you're a patron, if you become a patron, we'll send you out codes and stuff so you can get discounts to VIP or pre-sale or whatever the venue lets us do. All venues are different. But we usually give you some sort of little cool thing. We're doing a super secret meetup in a public venue after the show at Largo on April 18th, and our patrons will get access to that. So it's $3 to become a patron, and you get all our little secret messages. You get your Annie decoder ring. No, I'm just kidding. There's no decoder ring. But you get my show notes, the newsletter, ad-free main episodes, access to the ad-free full-length MSW Book Club episodes, the whole archive of minisodes, ad-free. You get the ad-free midweek update, and you'll automatically become a patron of our forthcoming daily news show called Daily Beans. So best deal in the universe. Join us at patreon.com/MuellerSheWrote. For information on our other tour dates, like I said, March 29th at Miracle Theater in D.C., March 30th at the Bell House in Brooklyn, June 14th at the Parkway Theater in Minneapolis. Just head to our website, MuellerSheWrote.com. All the ticket links are there, and the VIP meet and greet cocktail hour information is there. We cannot wait to see you guys out on the road. And yes, those live shows will be put out as episodes. Those are going to be our episodes for the week. We're going to go through the news. We're going to have the Fantasy Indictment League. It's going to be awesome, so check it out. So before we drop into the news, let's get our shit together with corrections.
It's a mistake. It's hard for me to say I'm sorry.
Oh, I made a mistake.
All right, let's start with the ongoing saga of me trying to pronounce the name of the right-wing crackpot party in Sweden. First, I came out of the gate with Sverigedemokraterna, which was close, but you all emailed me saying it was a soft G, which I took to mean a J sound, like in GIF, not GIF. So I started trying. I'm going to plug that
Another
as many
ongoing
times as I
saga.
can.
How AG pronounces GIF.
GIF. So I tried again with Sverigedemokraterna, and now you've all come back saying, no, soft G like a Y sound.
Veronica and I are trying this new fad called jogging. I believe it's jogging or yogging. It might be a soft J.
So let me try it one more time. Sverigedemokraterna. Is that closer?
Oh, it sounds closer.
That sounded beautiful, whatever it was.
Sverigedemokraterna.
You need your little
Why
Sverigedemokraterna.
you sound Irish?
Sverigedemokraterna.
It's a St. Patty's Day. It's Italian.
Can you
What's
picture that
happening?
hat on her, the little Russian hat one of her fans sent her?
I have it.
You gotta say that with that hat on.
The Russian hat speaking the Swedish?
It just all makes sense to me.
I don't know. It just reminds me of this.
Hey, you know I'm half Swedish. Hey, hur har resan varit hittills?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
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 Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Guys, I wasn't going to keep trying, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity to play that clip from Splash. So thanks to all of you for writing in on that. I'm sure I fucked it up again somehow. We'll keep going. Now I'm into it. I'll get it right before the end of the year, I swear to God. Next, we got a lot of emails telling us about the dark web, which we mocked relentlessly in a midweek episode. I won't go through everything, but it exists. And apparently there's 3 levels from what you guys say. The surface web, that's what we all surf on. The deep web, and the dark web. And it really has to do with encryption and passwords, and you need access to encrypted sites, basically. I'm not going to go into it. I know there's more to it. You don't have to tell me. But thank you for that information. So it's real. You can buy kidneys.
Yeah, someone begged us not to go.
Yeah.
They called me out. They're like, don't
do it.
Don't check it out?
No. Yeah.
The deep dark web. It sounds like paradise by the dashboard light. Okay. Anyway, Meatloaf fans? No, probably not. I also referred to the nuclear boobies at San Onofre as cooling towers, but they aren't cooling towers. The boobies actually house the reactors themselves, so they are literally nuclear boobies. And thank you for that. The reason that I could call them cooling towers, I was a nuke in the Navy. The reactor itself is the cooler and I'm pretty sure that's how it works in most places. But there is a cooling system in the secondary system and the tertiary system. And in the third one, you bring in ocean water to condense the steam that went through the turbines. But so when I think cooling towers, that's where, to me, the reactor is. So I just wanted to clarify that.
The cooling system's probably in some shaft building. or something.
But because the water comes through and the water gets hot, but that cools the reactor, right?
Because it's that hot.
Yeah, because basically when the uranium fissions and the neutrons will collide with the hydrogen atoms in hydrogen molecules in water, transferring most of its kinetic energy because they're roughly the same size, that heats the water up, cools down the reactor, and then that goes and heats a secondary water system. And that's probably all classified information, so I'm probably in a lot of trouble.
That's just science. It's fine. Trump does make science classified information now, doesn't he?
I know.
No books.
That's true.
When I was a nuke in the Navy, they made us classify our algebra notebooks. I'm like, it's the fucking quadratic equation. Why do we need to-
No one else can know.
Classified.
Just to fill you guys with pride.
Jared Kushner is allowed to look at that. And the Ides of March, by the way, which just passed. Ides means middle of the month, basically. And I know it's not literal, but it falls sometimes on the 15th, but only in March, May, July, and October. Usually it's the 13th, because that calendar was weird. They put it into threes, and it's odd. And it's just, you know what? Just trust me. It's the middle of the month. And in March, it falls on the 15th. And then speaking of Latin, et tu, Brute. Jordan, you had asked why Brute if it's Brutus. The name Brutus is a second declension masculine noun, and it appears in the phrase in the vocative case. And so the U.S. ending is the nominative case. It's replaced by the E. So I took Latin in high school. I should have known that. I only really remember the verb conjugations, like agricola, agricolas, agricolae, agricolis, agricolas, agricolis. But Brute, Brutus, depending on if you're talking about them or if you're addressing them directly, which is the vocative case, you get that E ending.
Nice. It's good to know we didn't get any political shit wrong.
Yeah.
Just random nerdy shit.
And everyone's like, my Latin came in handy. I'm like, all right, dead language. Here we go. Also, we were talking about Trump's shit grades and test scores and that he could just embrace it by saying Einstein was a genius that sucked at school. But apparently, there's a lot of evidence out there that he was actually a really good student.
I knew that was wrong when I said it.
And, well, why did you?
I mean, I didn't know. I just had a feeling, I have that feeling a lot.
Yeah. And apparently there's evidence that actually Einstein's wife largely composed the theory of relativity anyway.
Oh, I believe it.
So it's all out there for you to search if you want to read up on it. Really fascinating.
It's always the wife, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Behind every genius is the actual genius,
Michelle
I think is the
Obama.
phrase.
I was just going to say that the Michelle Obama of white people.
Yes.
Yeah, and by the way, Michelle Obama and Barack Obama have a magic beans inside joke. So I thought that was adorable.
That is.
I'll tell you all about it next week because I don't have it in front of me, but just trust me. Or Google Obama's magic beans, and it's there. Actually, that could probably take you to the dark web, and I don't know if you want to go there. Finally, in the midweek episode, I had mocked an entry under Jared Kushner's yearbook photo that said he was a member of the Hasty Pudding Club, and we got a lot of emails saying that HPC. Yeah, you know me, is actually fucking awesome, and no one really understands how Kushner was even a part of it because it's so cool. Jordan, what's the Pudding Club? What's the HP? Or it might even be Hasty Pudding Society, but I think it's club.
Yeah, so the Hasty Pudding Club, it was established in 1770 as a social club for Harvard students initially, and its purpose was to bring together undergraduates in friendship, conversation, and camaraderie.
And pudding.
And pudding, exactly. The club is named for the traditional American dish that the founding members ate at their first meeting, and now what they do
And now they wrestle in it.
Yeah. It's very, very straight. It is co-ed, actually, and heteronormativity is just a joke. I'm just joking.
Yes.
No
right.
emails.
Wherever you fall.
So, yes, wherever you fall is fine. Each week, 2 members in alphabetical order apparently have to provide the pudding for the eating. And that's about it. Conan is on record saying that he hates the club.
Oh.
That's the only celeb shout-out I saw on the wiki page. It
I
was
heard
negative.
Jason Segel was part of it at some point.
No, it was probably a joke. Conan probably said that as a joke.
Yeah, Conan, he seems like a pudding-type fella.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think he could have been in it.
I bet he couldn't say Sverige Demokraterna.
Yeah.
Bill Cosby wasn't associated with this, right? When I think Hasty Pudding Club, I just think Cosby.
And the pudding and the pops and the ladies, they're sleeping.
They don't let black people into Harvard.
Good point. Or at least not then, right?
Not in the 1770s, for sure. Although, you know what? I'm probably going to get an email proving me wrong. So if you have corrections, send them to hello@MuellerSheWrote.com. And we will read them on the air. And remember, compliment sandwich. I actually got, this is how I think that feedback should go, right? You say something nice, then you put your feedback in there, and then you say something, then you end with something nice. I actually got feedback on how I ask for feedback. She's like, no sandwich. You say the compliment, then you say the feedback, and then you end, because people always remember what's at the end. And I disagree.
So like a toast, like an avocado toast kind of. It's not a sandwich quite.
It's an open-faced sandwich.
Yeah,
I disagree. I like the compliment at the end. Maybe because it helps me forget the
which defeats the purpose, I guess. So she did have a point. But I'm with you. I like sandwiches.
I like sandwiches too. I don't understand open face sandwiches. Really, that's just
it's not complete.
They're the distressed genes of food. It costs twice as much. And it's
when one slice leaves the family.
Diesel sandwich. Alrighty, guys, let's jump into the news this week with just the facts. All right, guys, let's travel all the way back in time to last Sunday, which seems like a decade ago, when a story dropped about Manafort and the mystery $125,000 payment he lied about to prosecutors 3 times. One of the things that blew up his plea agreement. And why on earth he lied about it so many times is beyond me, but I think I have an idea. But I mean, it's the weirdest thing to cover up. The payment was made to Manafort in June 2017, and we didn't learn about it until prosecutors accused him of lying about it, lying about the origin of the payment. He said 3 different stories that made no sense. I was alone. I found it in the couch. It was the dumbest.
Just a change in the couch.
Yeah, that's the change in the couch for Manafort is $125,000. So basically, Manafort helped establish a super PAC in June of 2016 with a dude named Lori Gay. And it was called Rebuilding America Now. And Gay is a former Reagan guy who then worked with Manafort as a lobbyist in the 1980s. And their super PAC, the one for Trump, raised $24 million, considerable amount, and far more than any other Trump PAC had come close to earning. Now, as it turns out, this PAC is how Manafort got paid for his work on Trump's campaign. We learned this because when Manafort's legal bills started piling up, he asked for a $125,000 loan to help with that, or loan, quote unquote. And the path that money took uncovered this kickback scheme that Manafort and Gay set up using the PAC as a cover. And I think that's why he was lying about it, because I think other monies took this same path. While this $125,000 thing for legal fees is no big deal and it's not illegal, I don't think he wanted anybody to know the path that the money took, because I think other monies that weren't legal took that same route.
Right, because the money that's raised through PACs are not supposed to, they can't be directly associated with anyone in the campaign.
Right, and they can't be foreign.
Right.
So,
yes.
So Gay reached out to another one of their associates that ran an ad buying firm called Multiple Media Services Corporation, or MMSC, based in Virginia, run by a dude named Tony Fabrizio, who incidentally was Trump's pollster on his campaign and another Ukrainian lobbyist. He worked for on behalf of the Ukraine with Manafort. So Tony Fabrizio, remember that name for your fantasy indictment draft. Anyway, he's testified several times with Mueller's grand jury. And anyway, these guys are on Jerry Nadler's list of 81 people. All of them are on that list of, when Jerry Nadler from House Judiciary is trying to get all this documentation from these guys. Anyway, Gay reached out to Fabrizio and his ad buying agency, who incidentally received $19 million of the $24 million. So most of the money raised by that super PAC went to this ad buying agency. So Gay got the money from Fabrizio, $125,000. Then Gay put it in Manafort's lawyer's account. What we didn't know until now is that all these guys were skimming 6% off the top of every ad in a kickback scheme and paying themselves with donor dollars, calling it commission, on ad buys. This harkens back to the NRA ad buying scheme that you reported on, Jordan, a few episodes ago. So, why did Manafort lie to cover this up? And like I said, my beans are on a river of foreign money poured into that PAC. Manafort paid most of it to his friend and Trump pollster Fabrizio. And Manafort, Gay, and Fabrizio pocketed 6% of that money, which I think probably came from Russia. I probably think sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Follow the rubles.
PACs definitely are not. They're supposed to be nonprofits, right? You're not allowed to just take 6% off the top, or you could say it's for administrative costs.
Yeah, that could be a cost, paying yourself. But that it depends on where the money comes from.
Right. Yeah. To be determined.
I know for a fact Mueller knows, and my beans are on Russia, or maybe even Saudi or UAE, Israel, Mexico.
Definitely.
Could be any number of places. In other Manafort news this week, he was sentenced in his D.C. case by Judge Jackson, if you're nasty, to what amounts to 3.5 additional years in federal prison. So all told, he'll be serving about 7.5 years, minus time served, so minus 9 months. This D.C. case was partially concurrent. It's going to be, the judge said you have to serve this partially concurrently and partially consecutively. So our beans came true because I said 5 years, part concurrent, part consecutive, and that's exactly what happened. And that just means some of the time has to be served in addition to the time he was given by crazy-ass Honey Badger Ellis in Eastern District of Virginia, and some of that can be served at the same time, so he's not doubling up on the time. She really wanted to have him serve the additional time for the new crimes of witness tampering and conspiracy to obstruct justice, and that's exactly what we thought would happen, so our beans came true. As you all know, the sentencing of less than 4 years from Ellis is a joke. I think he should have gotten 12 or at least 8 in that case. But Ellis hated this case from the beginning. So 4 years is what, a little less than 4 years is what he got.
Yeah, Ellis is definitely the kind of guy that wears a fedora when he's not wearing a wig.
Oh, that's hilarious.
He's
the robe
total
on.
like Jordan, what's his name? Jordan Shapiro. Oops. I created an awful baby of whataboutisms and devil's advocates. But that whole time he was just like, this is not about the Mueller investigation. He was going to live and die on that hill just to like punish them, it seemed almost, for even being a part of the same team that was investigating those crimes.
Yeah, but I got super space beans on a theory, and Judge Ellis is coming out and saying, this is just to put the screws to Manafort.
Mm-hmm. To get him to flip.
Supports my theory. And I'll get into that in a minute. But the big news for Manafort sentencing this week was that Judge Jackson explicitly said that the case and her ruling have nothing to do with collusion because Manafort wasn't charged with collusion in this case. And her ruling in no way determines whether or not Manafort conspired with Russia. And she even said there could be evidence. We don't know, but I'm not ruling on that today. Then, immediately after that, Manafort's asshole lawyer stepped out of the courtroom and told everyone, the judge conceded there's no evidence of collusion, which is a total lie, and I hope he's disbarred. But I also can't help but notice he seems to be lubing the truth with all this no collusion stuff. Why are you trying to convince us unless you know that it's going to come up in the future? And I wanted to add this to the mounting number of clues I've been collecting over the past year, pointing to the idea that Manafort will, at some point, be indicted for crimes of collusion with Russia. And let me explain, as I did in episode 23. You're going to want to check out that episode as a primer for this. And I do realize that collusion is not a crime, but crimes of collusion include RICO, wire
Conspiracy.
fraud, bank fraud, money laundering, computer fraud and abuse, conspiracy to defraud the United States, aiding and abetting. Those are quote-unquote crimes of collusion, and that's how it was defined by Rod Rosenstein in the scope memo outlining what Mueller is supposed to be investigating. So when I say crimes of collusion, I want you to know that that's what I mean. All right, so clue number 1 was when we got that redacted Rosenstein memo I was just talking about that outlined the scope of Mueller's investigation into Manafort. One of the 2 bullets we could see that wasn't redacted was that Mueller was charged with investigating crimes of collusion. This presumably wouldn't have been included if they didn't already have some indication or some evidence that Manafort had conspired with Russia. Clue number 2 was a minute order wherein the judge asked Manafort to write a brief explaining why the charges against him should be dropped, and the judge acknowledged in that minute order that Manafort was seeking relief from current and future charges. And this was after he'd already been charged with all the bank and tax fraud shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I took that future charges means crimes of collusion. Clue number 3 was when a warrant was made public showing prosecutors were still searching Manafort's shit as recently as March of last year, after he'd been charged already for the bank and tax fraud shit, indicating there is an ongoing investigation. And not to mention, they seized 5 phones in that raid, indicating they weren't just looking for business and tax shit, but possibly trying to determine his whereabouts, such as clandestine meetings with Konstantin Kalimnik, maybe. Clue number 4 happened when Mueller reminded van der Zwaan, after he got out of prison, that he had waived his FOIA rights in his plea agreement because he had sensitive information about Manafort that was part of an ongoing investigation. And van der Zwaan has nothing to do with Manafort's bank and tax fraud shit. And clue number 5 was in that same warrant when they seized the phones, and much of that warrant was redacted because it contained evidence of an investigation, quote, not part of the current prosecutions involving Manafort, meaning there are future prosecutions involving Manafort, at least underway or being investigated.
Right, and not related to the real estate, possibly?
Not at all.
Okay.
Because not part of the current prosecution.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That is current.
Because even though he's got the new real estate stuff, those are still the old crimes.
Makes sense, yeah.
But they're newer. They just recently happened. Anyway, not have anything to do with that. Add that to the time Andrew Weissman told the judge in court that Manafort's secret meeting with Kilimnik goes to the heart of the Mueller investigation. And we know those meetings didn't have anything to do with bank and tax fraud. And the constant barrage of the no collusion by Manafort's lawyers, even going so far as to say that Judge Jackson conceded there was no evidence of collusion when that's the opposite of what she said. And it seems clear to me that Mueller isn't done with Manafort. As a matter of fact, Natasha Bertrand wrote a piece about it in The Atlantic that dropped Friday morning called Mueller Isn't Done with Manafort. And she'll be with us later for the interview to discuss it. So
nice.
Ready for some super space beans on this?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's RICO charges. I think there are RICO indictments coming from Mueller's team. They may already be on the docket, sealed. Two more sealed indictments went up on the docket on Friday or Thursday. Of course, we don't know if they're Mueller. We don't know what they are. We just know that they're sealed indictments.
Yeah.
And
sorry.
No, go ahead.
If you want to know what RICO is, get our book club, become a patron, because we talk about that in our second episode of it, and we talked about this and asking if it was something that might happen. And totally, I agree.
Yeah, and it's interesting that he's bringing that up now, McCabe, in his book. Yeah, RICO's basically racketeering. So anyway, remember when I was talking about Judge Ellis saying, you're just doing this to, this isn't about Russian collusion. You're just doing this to get him to flip on Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's what they were doing. That's why he was charged with bank and tax fraud shit, because normally what happens is the prosecutor will come at you and say, I got all this bank and tax fraud shit. You want to help me out? Well, Manafort said no. So they had to go forward with the prosecution. That was that whole, and Mueller wanted it all to be in one case, and Manafort's, no, I like 2 trials, please, 2 trials.
Mm-hmm. Dragging it out for them, making it harder.
Fuji's, 2 trials. And yeah, and so Mueller's like, oh, all right, bro. But that's why they prosecuted those, is he pled not guilty. Then he agreed to cooperate, and they started asking him about Kilimnik and crimes of collusion, and he lied, and that's why that's all redacted, because they're trying to do the investigation into that. And he blew up that plea deal, so they're like, all right, fine, fuck it, get out of here. And I don't know if you guys knew this, and I'll be talking about this. No, I'll talk about it right now. Rick Gates came in Friday for his sentencing update. They extended, Mueller asked for another 60-day extension, which I predicted on Twitter the night before, because I know Rick Gates is helping with the inaugural stuff, but he could also be helping
with the collusion stuff.
With the collusion stuff.
That would make so much sense.
Because Manafort was a no help.
Yeah, exactly. The redacted element, all of it makes sense, pointing towards another case in the works.
Yeah, because they said he's still cooperating in several ongoing investigations, Rick Gates. Not just one, several. So, again, I'm sure he's assisting multiple agencies with the inaugural investigation because he was the deputy of the inaugural fund, but he could be helping with Manafort. So those are my super space beans. And I think we're going to see RICO charges. It could be one big RICO indictment involving all the players that haven't been indicted yet, all the targets, or he could have several up there, and that might be why there's several sealed indictments on the docket. One for the Stonehenge, one for Manafort and his group.
Little cluster of fucks.
One for little cluster fucks.
It's like a cereal brand.
Yeah.
Fuck clusters.
Yeah.
With honey and oats.
Nice. Trees and oats.
Oh my god. Oh my god, Jaleesa, you're on fire.
And then maybe one for Zamel and the August 3rd group.
Right.
Nader and all those guys. Maybe one with the Seychelles group, Dmitriev, Eric Prince, and all that.
Yeah.
He might have several. And instead of a report, which everyone's saying, oh, to be out on the 26th, you can buy it on Amazon. Alan Dershowitz stood the forward. Washington Post has one up there, too, now. But that report might be like, I indicted these people, I didn't indict these people. But we might see a whole
sweeping indictment
group
event,
of one giant or a group of indictments, mostly for RICO, conspiracy, computer fraud, all those things I named, crimes of collusion, that comes out, and that is our Mueller report.
And it wouldn't include Trump, right? Because we still can't get him.
He'd be named as individual one, but I don't think Mueller's going to indict a sitting president, so he would be, just like Nixon, an unindicted co-conspirator.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah. I think for them, honestly, it'd be a more efficient use of their time, too, if they could just slam a bunch of RICO cases on them.
Yeah.
And like we talked talked about last week in the book club, every time that you indict someone or a group of people, you have to prove their association with each other, and every single person has to have engaged in that act. So
2 crimes.
Right. Yeah.
2 crimes. It's all coming back to the Fugees, who, by the way, Pras Michel is part of this whole investigation.
Oh my God, AG, you cracked it.
Because of the Qatar Investment Authority fucking him and Ice Cube out of a bunch of money.
Right.
And then them laundering it. So, haha.
I'm going to go back and listen to the Fugees and look for all the codes.
Connecting the dots.
Yeah.
2 crimes, Pras Michel. And do I have that right? Is it the Fugees? And he was in that? Yeah, I think so.
All of this is going over my head. What are the Fugees?
It's a group, like a kind of a hip hop group. Like Lauryn Hill was in it.
They redid
Sean.
Strumming My Pain with his
yeah,
fingers.
totally.
I like the original.
2 times.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they're both great.
Okay.
I like the Roberta Flack
Yeah,
version
so good.
But it was, Fugees.
Mm-hmm.
Lauryn Hill.
Short for refugees, I believe.
Yes.
Because they're all like brown people.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
all
not
right.
that white people can't be refugees. You get the picture.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that brings us to the Schadenfreude of the week.
Schadenfreude!
Dad, do you know what Schadenfreude is?
No, I do not know what Schadenfreude is. Please tell me because I'm dying to know.
It's a German term for shameful joy, taking pleasure in the suffering of others.
Oh, come on, Lisa. I'm just glad to see him fall flat on his butt.
And the winner of Schadenfreude of the week goes to Cy Vance. He's the Manhattan District Attorney, the DA, who, as Manafort's lawyer liar, was bullshitting in the public courtroom on the steps on D.C. as he was up there saying that shit that the judge, Jackson, conceded that there was no collusion. Cy Vance dropped an indictment on Manafort for 16 counts of mortgage fraud and falsifying business records. So go ahead, Trump. Try to pardon your way out of those measly 7.5 years for Manafort. I don't give a fuck. New York DA has him dead to rights on 16 more counts that he's already admitted to in his past 2 trials. Trump can't touch this with a pardon, and I think he's looking at up to 25 years.
You want an MC Hammer clip right there?
Can't touch this. Oh, no, let's not do that.
No, probably.
I'll just sing it for you. Guys, and I'm sure that's not all. I'm expecting, put beans on this, Virginia State to indict him, too. I wonder... maybe Eastern District of New York. I wonder if anyone keeps track of my beans, where they are, which beans have come true. That'd be a fun list to see. Like what beans may come.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. That'd be fun. That's a lot of goddamn work, though.
Yeah.
That sounds like too much work. Anyway, we'll be right back. Hey, Mueller junkies. This episode is brought to you by our favorite bra company, Third Love. Third Love uses their Fit Finder quiz, which asks not only about your cup size and strap size, but asks about your cup shape and what your common issues with off-the-rack bras are, like cup spillage or the straps that dig. And the Fit Finder quiz is fast and easy to use. It will assess your needs and recommend the perfect bra. Third Love knows there's a perfect fit for everyone, and they carry more sizes than anyone in the industry, with 70 sizes, and for all body types. And they have signature half sizes. Did you know that 50% of women fall between cup sizes? I'm one of them. So this alleviates that problem, and I'm very happy about it. Once you take their Fit Finder quiz, you can order and try on at home, so no more bra store hawks chasing you around with tape measures and then throwing you into a dressing room with a box of 50 bras to try on. That's fun. I love Third Love, though, because it saves me the trip to the mall. It saves me having to deal with those ladies. They have incredible customer service. I get to try them on at home, and they have a 100% fit guarantee, so returns and exchanges are free and easy. This is hands down the most comfortable bra I own. They're breathable, tagless, and they're made of the softest materials, so you'll barely know it's there. Third Love wants to help you find your perfect fitting bra today, and they're offering you 15% off your first order. So go to thirdlove.com/AG now to find your perfect fitting bra and get 15% off your first purchase. That's thirdlove.com/AG for 15% off today. You'll be glad you did. All right, guys, welcome back. So, right before the break, we were discussing the 16 new indictments from Manhattan DA Cy Vance, and this week, a lot of you sent me an old ProPublica article with concerns about how Vance took money from Donald Trump Jr. and Ivanka and at some point overruled a case that New York prosecutors were preparing against them for felony fraud. Remember when Don Jr. and Ivanka were lying to potential real estate buyers about how many condos they sold in Trump Soho to trick them into buying? Like, we're almost sold out. You got to buy them now. We talked about this in previous episodes. Well, the prosecutors at the Manhattan DA's office had been building a case to charge them with felony fraud for that. Well, what really happened was that Kasowitz, that's, the lawyer, and he was at the time the attorney for the Trump kids. He donated $25,000 to the re-election campaign of Cy Vance. And apparently Kasowitz had asked him to drop the case. But before that meeting happened, when he asked him to drop the case, Vance had already returned the $25,000 to Kasowitz, saying, this isn't right, it's kind of a conflict of interest.
Kind of.
And he didn't bring any charges against the Trumps because he didn't believe he had a case. He didn't think he had the proof. And 6 months after Vance dropped the case, 6 months after, Kasowitz made a $50,000 donation to his campaign. Vance now says he's planning on giving that back too, but not until recently he decided to do that. Personally, even if there was anything weird here, which there might have been, it kind of sounds like it, but it also is kind of typical rich people greasing the DA, the local DA. And I don't think this has any bearing on the 16 indictments he just brought against Manafort. If anything, it shows that he can't be bought.
Yeah, totally. And if you take issue with them giving money or him accepting money from them in the first place, Hillary accepted money from Trump throughout a lot of her political career.
She sure did.
That's just New York, baby.
That's just New York. Oh, my God, I'm so California. Monday, we learned that the White House rejected House Oversight Democrat Chair Elijah Cummings' request to interview Stefan Passantino and Sherry Dillon, both personal attorneys for Trump. Cummings requested the interviews with the two lawyers after they obtained documents indicating they had lied to ethics officials when they were questioned about hush money payments made to Stormy Daniels, Stephanie Clifford's. White House counsel Pat Cipollone, he got all pissy that Cummings directly requested the interviews without going through the White House counsel, and then he said that they will not make Passantino available for questioning. The White House is also still refusing to supply documents related to security clearances for Ivanka and Jared. Those are memos written by John Kelly and Don McGahn, even though someone within the White House has already leaked those memos to House Dems in Congress. So lots of fights teed up between congressional oversight and the White House. I'm sure the White House will keep resisting. I'm sure congressional oversight will keep pushing. There'll probably be some subpoenas issued, and we'll keep you posted on all of them. So stay tuned. The Miami Herald reported Monday that the Federal Court of Appeals in New York took the first step to unseal documents in the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking case and gave the parties until March 19th to establish good cause as to why they should remain sealed. If they failed to provide good cause, the summary judgment, deposition transcripts, and supporting documents will be made public. And that's bad news for folks like Alan Dershowitz, who has lobbied to keep the press out of the case, and maybe even Donald Trump, who has been named in cases against Epstein. Prince Andrew is involved in these Epstein parties as well. And the U.S. attorney in Florida that let Epstein off the hook is Trump's current labor secretary, Alex Acosta. He's providing oversight for sex trafficking right now.
Gross.
Yeah. And recently a federal judge is handling his case a federal judge said that his handling of the Epstein case was against the law.
Yeah, by not informing the 30 women of the deal that he gave to Epstein, right?
Because basically, if you're the U.S. attorney and you're doing a deal with a crimer, then you have to tell the victims of the crime that you're doing the deal. Mm-hmm. And he'd failed to do that, so he broke the law. And he's still somehow the labor secretary.
Because Trump,
There you go.
Yeah, most of the people in power with him, are still somehow in their position. Mm-hmm. All of them are still somehow there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if how Nixon added a bowling alley and Obama added a basketball court. When did Trump adds a rub and tug?
Little salon,
just
a
little Cindy gang.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Orchid Day Spa right in the West Wing, right off the White House there.
Yeah. He's like, look, it's for the climate. All the car trips to the rub and tug places from Congress.
It's bad for the environment.
It's a stretch.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
It is. It is 5 times a day.
Well, speaking of Cindy Lang, the former owner of the Orchid Day Spa in Jupiter, Florida, she's apparently seeking to hire 2 of Roger Stone's lawyers, a husband and wife couple named Evan and Karen Turk, the Turks. The Day Spa is where authorities have charged Patriots owner Robert Kraft and 24 others with soliciting prostitution. All this on the heels of a bunch of photos of Cindy glad-handing, pardon the parlance, with Trump at a Super Bowl party and a ton of other Republican officials and talking heads, including Matt Gaetz, Scott Walker, Dan Bongino,
Bingo Bungo,
and more. Just pretty much any Republican in Florida has a flushed face taking a selfie with this lady.
Mm-hmm. Are they embarrassed or like, fresh out the...
She just complimented them. Let's just say that. And recent reports indicate Yang set up a slush fund to sell access to the president, a lot like Essential Consulting. It's fucking essential. That was Cohen's little slush fund where AT&T and Novartis and everybody was giving him millions of dollars to just get access to the president.
Right.
She was doing this too. And she's also been known to provide, allegedly, trafficked women to businessmen at Mar-a-Lago Resort. So she's fucked, and you can put some beans on that. We got a lot of Roger Stone news this week. Jordan's going to go over that in Hot Notes, so stick around. We learned Monday that New York Attorney General is now investigating Deutsche Bank, Deutsche Want a Loan, and their ties to Trump projects. The civil probe was prompted by the public testimony of Michael Cohen and has issued subpoenas for loan applications. New York Attorney General has issued subpoenas for loan applications, mortgages, lines of credit, and other financial transactions relating to the financing of Trump organization projects and his unsuccessful attempt to buy the Buffalo Bills football team. Specifically, they're looking into the Trump International Hotel in D.C., the Doral, that's some fucking piece of shit golf club in Miami, and the Trump Hotel and Tower in Chicago. This is all based on the Cohen testimony saying Trump gave false financial statements to Deutsche Bank to support his failed attempts to buy the Buffalo Bills, and lower his real estate taxes. Both crimes, by the way, Manafort's going to prison for, so we know they're crimes.
Yeah, don't you want a plea deal?
Don't you?
You're going to make T-shirts.
Don't you want to resign? And he's now facing the Manhattan DA charges for falsifying business documents, Manafort is, and that we covered earlier. So part of that real estate fraud that the Manhattan DA is charging Manafort with has to do with falsifying business documents. That's probably the time when he tried to take his PDF and turn it into a Word document and change it and convert it back to a PDF and fucked up the formatting because Republicans can't tech. And the hits just keep coming this week because we learned in a new court filing Thursday that New York Attorney General Tisha James, detailed her case against the Trump Foundation lawsuit seeking $2.8 million and an order banning the Trumps from operating a charity in New York for 10 years. This filing was in response to a submission from the Trump Foundation lawyers saying her initial lawsuit was flimsy and politically motivated, even though they settled and shut down. They had reached a deal, right? Because in December, they reached a deal to close their doors and distribute. They had $1.7 million in funds, and they agreed to distribute to other charities under court supervision, by the way, not like how Trump wants to probably distribute it to charities.
Mm-hmm.
But the agreement apparently didn't resolve the lawsuit. So she's going after him still.
I like her.
I do too. And if that weren't enough, we found out that a New York appeals court rejected Trump's motion to dismiss the defamation suit filed against him by Summer Zervos, a former contestant on The Apprentice. She said he groped her. He called her a liar. She sued him for calling her a liar. He filed a motion to dismiss because he's above state law. Court says, no, you're not. So he's got to go now forward with this lawsuit. I wonder how Trump keeps track of all of his lawsuits.
I was just thinking that today. Yeah,
yeah. That yeah.
Does he have his own murder board?
I was just gonna say, yeah. That's a weird Lisa Frank binder.
Trapper keeper.
Yeah. It was making me think too, if that sets a precedent for states being able to indict or not indict, but just move forward with a case, and if the federal government won't indict him, then maybe the state government will.
Yeah, and they did actually use the precedent of Paula Jones versus Clinton because she sued him, right? And that was, I think, a federal civil suit. And so they cited that, saying if she can do that, then they can do this in the state court. And so, yeah, I think the more cases you get going in the favor of Trump's not above the law, whether it's state or federal, the more case law you have and precedent you have to move forward with perhaps Southern District of New York indicting the president.
Totally.
So
yeah, Trump's, I don't know if he have a murder board. He'd probably have like a burn book, Like I can see him being really petty.
You're a fugly slut.
Yeah. It's Rosie O'Donnell. I love her, but he would say that.
He would. I think he probably did. Drug pusher. Then Tuesday, we got deep cuts from Mean Girls. I'm sorry. Yeah. Then Tuesday, we got Flynn status update early. We're supposed to not get it until Thursday or Friday, but Flynn's lawyers asked for another 90-day continuance for sentencing, citing that he's still cooperating with cases, including testifying in the Bijan Kian case coming up in July. Bijan Kian was the guy he lobbied for Turkey with, and he was indicted by Mueller right before Flynn appeared in court. That time, the judge was like, did you guys maybe think about charging this dude with treason? Remember that?
Yeah.
And the judge was also like, do you really want me to sentence you today? And they're like, yeah, go ahead. No, do you really want me to sentence you today?
Like, are you sure?
Yeah, no, we're ready, sir. Look at me again. Do you really want
He's
to?
like, look at me, look at me.
And he's like, no? Good answer. Go forth and cooperate. Love and serve the people. Fucking piece of shit. So he's like, oh, we need 90 more days to cooperate as much as we can so that you don't put me in jail for more than 0 days. I don't know. Mueller's team has no objection to the 90-day continuance, which puts the next update on June 10th, a full month before the Bijan Keon trial starts. And Mueller's team also said, sure, we don't have any objection. Go ahead. But we're done with him. But if you got a thing, go do your thing, man. So the continuation was granted, and we'll revisit it in June. Matthew fucking Whitaker met with the chair and ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee behind closed doors Wednesday after being called back for being a fishy dick. According to Jerry Nadler, the major takeaways, there were 3, are 1, that Whitaker did not deny Trump called him to discuss Cohen and to see if Trump ally Berman would unrecuse himself and oversee the Cohen investigation. Also, he was involved in discussions about firing U.S. attorneys. And finally, he discussed whether the Southern District of New York had gone too far by investigating Trump's finances. So basically, he lied under oath. We'll see if he pays the price. That's what led me to wonder how much prison wine Whitaker could make in one of his big dick toilets.
Quite a bit, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and that's why our midweek episode was called Big Dick Toilet Wine. And we might go with that again, because I think it's seriously my favorite episode.
I love it. That was so funny. Also, a great band name. I know people always say that, but I really mean it.
Big Dick Toilet Wine.
Big Dick Toilet Wine. BTDW.
Oh.
T-dubs. BTD dubs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love it. And I know it's not good for search engine optimization, but I don't fucking care.
Or big ball toilet wine. That's the discussion we had.
Because, we were talking about that toilet's not really for big dicks. It's about for dudes with saggy
Droopy
balls.
Yeah.
But it's going to be hard to market. Do you have saggy balls? If I got the toilet for you, it's like, you got a big dick? Come get this toilet.
Yeah.
You're really kind of playing into that big dick energy.
Yeah.
At that point. That's what you should call the toilet.
Big dick energy?
The BDE.
Oh.
The bidet.
That was before big dick energy really caught on,
big
probably.
Dick yeah. That's true. I don't think he has that anyway, but I bet he has droopy balls. Also, Wednesday, the New York Times dropped a piece of reporting that a grand jury in New York has subpoenaed documents from 2 prominent smartphone manufacturers as part of a federal investigation by the Eastern District of New York. So not the Eastern District of Virginia, not the Southern District of New York, but the Eastern District of New York. And they're looking into data deals that these smartphone manufacturers struck with Facebook. So Facebook, again, data problems. They are already facing scrutiny by the Federal Trade Commission and the Securities and Exchange Commission, not to mention the Justice Department Securities Fraud Unit over the extraction of data from over 80 million of us that they gave to Cambridge Analytica that was later used to influence the 2016 election.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, you're in trouble. I hate Facebook. All social media companies have participated in the Russian meddling.
Yeah, in one way or another.
So I know that y'all want us to get off Facebook, but we would have to get off all social media, and then you wouldn't have access to all of our stuff. So we're working on it, on a viable alternative. I don't see one right now, but it's active.
Yeah.
It's an active, ongoing search. It's an ongoing investigation. Rick Gates is helping us. On to Thursday, when CNN got a hold of some emails from to Cohen from a guy named Costello. And this is one of the lawyers that joined up with Rudy Giuliani and Trump's team right around the time that after Cohen was raided, right? And one of the emails said, quote, "I spoke with Rudy. Very, very positive. You are loved." He's talking to Cohen. "If you want to call me, I will give you the details. I told him everything you asked me to, and he said that he knew that. There was never any doubt, and they're in our corner. Rudy said this communication channel must be maintained. He called it crucial and noted how reassured they were that they had someone like me, whom Rudy has known for so many years, in this role. Sleep well tonight. You have friends in high places."
Ugh.
P.S. Some very positive comments about you from the White House. Rudy noted how that followed my chat with him last night. Okay.
It sounds like they were writing Cohen as if he was like already in prison. Like, hang in there, buddy.
Yeah, total like mob shit.
Yeah.
Hang in there.
Sleep well tonight.
Sleep
You
with
can
the
close
fishes.
both eyes.
Sleep well or sleep with the fishes. And then, where's the horse head? No. Anyway, that email is dated April 21st, Earth Day. Shortly after...
Just a glimmer of positivity.
Yeah.
Shortly, it didn't say Happy Earth Day.
End of the Earth Day.
Rude. So that was shortly after the raid on Cohen's properties. So when asked if he was offering a pardon there, when he was like, sleep well tonight, Costello said, that's nonsense. I wasn't dangling a pardon. I was just trying to smooth over the relationship between Cohen and Trump because Cohen seemed worried.
Really?
We don't have Cohen's response to these emails, but the story the mainstream media is missing here is the part of the email that says, quote, if you want to call me, I will give you the details, which to me means I can't say the word pardon in an email, so give me a call. If I saw that and I were Cohen, I'd call him up and I would record that call.
Oh, yeah, that's Cohen's specialty.
So what do you want to bet there's a tape out there somewhere?
I would bet beans on that one.
Maybe.
That'd be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Then Thursday, we learned that Andrew Weissman is hanging up his Mueller hat and his DOJ hat and headed into academia. No big deal. He's the number one guy. He did the Manafort case. He's one of the prosecutors on Mueller's team. But no big deal, guys. Everyone chill. There's still 13 angry Democrats. And maybe they are nearly done, including that whole big possibility, the super space beans I put out there about all the RICO indictments that might be coming. They could be done with those. They could be on the docket. Sealed. Done. Again, super duper colossal space beans. Don't get your hopes up on this. Don't hang your hopes on this.
Right. It would just be really cool.
Yeah, it would just be really cool. It could be that we just get a weird report. Maybe it's blocked. Then we subpoena. Then we find some other stuff. And then perhaps we hear maybe the truth. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to go. Just because Mueller is an investigator. He's not a prosecutor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And these could be handed off to D.C. Handed off? They could be handed off to D.C. Just fall into these weird accents.
We're in Jersey now, yeah.
When in Rome.
When in Rome.
That was not a New York
That's
accent.
also in Jersey.
Hey,
Rome.
One in Rome. One in Rome.
Oh, God.
Weissman's
specialty is like fraud and financial fraud. So, like you said, if they're wrapping this part up about it and they're shifting over to more of the,
counterintelligence.
Exactly.
And also, not to mention, he hasn't left yet, and he hasn't given a day he's leaving. So there's that. We just don't know. But, I mean, he's done. So he's going home. Everyone's like, oh, how do you feel now? Number one guy's gone. I'm like, fine. I don't know.
If you don't keep up with the investigation, I can see how these things look like it's falling apart. But that's why we exist.
That must be it. Like, oh, he's leaving. Your number one guy's leaving. Ha, ha, ha. You didn't find anything. It's over.
They don't see the connections.
He was the number one guy for laying the basis to, like he said, try to get him to flip, and then that didn't go through. Mm-hmm. So they followed it all the way through, and now they get to shift over into their other stuff.
Yeah, and this all could have been handed off to D.C. That did it again, handed off to D.C. Because that's what happened with Stone, right? Mueller no longer has the Stone case. But D.C. is prosecuting that. So yeah, way back in episode 23, really good episode. You should check it out, by the way, when we were talking about how Mueller had given full U.S. attorney power to all of his little underlings.
Mini Muellers.
So that they had the ability to just go on and continue their investigations without him.
Yeah.
So if he poofed or got fired or disappeared or got beamed up or the fucking rapture happened, I don't know, however he leaves.
He'd be the first one if the rapture, yeah.
Yeah, he would be saved, for sure.
Oh,
yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then we would get his shoes. That's why I'm excited for the rapture. All the free shoes.
Yes.
So
I'll still be here.
Because you leave your shoes behind.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a thing in the Bible?
Yeah, free shoes.
Wow. That's really classist, just assuming everyone has shoes.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
All the Toms left behind somewhere. There's like double the Toms out there with no shoes.
All those loser Super Bowl champion T-shirts left in Haiti.
I survived the Mueller investigation. All I got was this T-shirt.
Oh, God. But yeah, so everyone's got full power of U.S. attorney and can continue with these. There's still 13 people left. Everything's fine. Don't panic. Don't panic. He's just going home. He's done.
It's like he cloned himself, really.
Yeah. So don't be sad. Also Thursday, the House passed a resolution 420-0. saying they want the Mueller report made public. That is astounding, and I hope it speaks to William Barr about what our elected officials are expecting, which means what we are expecting. Of course, Lindsey Graham crackers blocked the resolution in the Senate. They're not even going to vote on it, so we might not be able to learn how many Republicans in the Senate want this report to be out there. But the Senate did vote 59-41, with 12 Republicans siding with Democrats to block Trump's national emergency declaration for his idiot wall. We only need 20 Republicans for impeachment, so this might be a little hint. However, most of the Republicans that voted against the emergency declaration did it for constitutional reasons, not because they don't want a wall. It's interesting. It's an interesting yardstick either way, and I just keep thinking about the white horse prophecy. And I mentioned this at the top of the show, and I'll tell you what it is again. Is it in our FAQ, by the way?
It's not. That'd be a cool one to add.
Should be in there.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, we were talking about this theory that Mitt Romney, this is way before the midterm election. I said, what if Mitt Romney gets elected because he hates Trump, and he comes to Washington and convinces 9 of his buddies, no, what was it? The
Romney 9, yeah.
9 of his buddies at the time, because I thought we were going to win the Senate, 9 of his buddies to vote to remove Trump from office after he's impeached in the House. We'll call it the Romney 9. And I got an email from an ex-Mormon. What are they called? Jack Mormons?
Yes, Jack Mormons.
From Jack Mormon, who said, oh my God, what you're talking about is called, it's an old defunct thing, they don't believe it anymore, but it's called the white horse prophecy, which says that at some point in the future, our Constitution and democracy will be hanging by a thread in great peril, and a Mormon man on a white horse will ride out from the West into Washington and save the country, save the democracy from certain death.
Is he shirtless in this? I just imagine Romney just like
no, that's not
buff.
Mormon.
Yeah.
He's shirtless, but he's got his underwear on.
Oh, of course. The magical underwear. Yeah.
I should clarify, too. I think Jack Mormon is actually just a shitty Mormon, not necessarily an ex-Mormon.
Okay, so this is an ex-Mormon. She definitely isn't shitty.
Yeah, like you're reaping the benefits of eternal salvation and maybe a planet of some kind, but you're bad.
And everyone's entitled to their beliefs.
Yeah, they are. And I don't know what I'm saying. This is half a bit, so...
half a bit.
Yeah.
Also disregard everything I said.
Yeah.
Like that, yeah.
If you're angry, tweet at Jaleesa.
What? They think our voices are the same.
They do.
They confuse me and Jordan all the time.
It's the weed.
Get her, the Mormons. Get her.
We're always just like, yeah.
I will say, I know a ton of Mormons. Nicest fucking people I've ever met.
Oh, absolutely. Unless.
And they have the best pantries in the world.
I want to hear this.
You sure you want to go down this road?
No, I really don't. Thank you.
I'm going to put your personal Twitter out there if you want to continue.
I do agree that they're very nice.
They are the sweetest people.
Unless you don't believe them. And then
they're very good piano
they're
teachers
nice,
as
but
well.
also
All my
a little
piano
bit pushy.
teachers were Mormons.
Oh, yeah.
All of them.
I feel a lot of guilt in the room. Yeah, I feel like they'll know you guys are good people. Yeah.
This is how we do it. This is how we do it. We learned Thursday that Republican Doug Collins has been unilaterally releasing full, unredacted transcripts of testimony, and I'll be going over that in depth with Natasha Bertrand in the interview a bit later, so stick around for that. Unredacted. Now, I remember Dianne Feinstein. She unilaterally released the Fusion GPS transcripts, but she at least had the good decency to go to the FBI and say what should be redacted.
Right.
They did not do this. Doug Collins did not do this. He's such a wiener. If you ever watch him talk, you're like, you're just such a wiener. I hate that guy. And this weekend, Republicans can't tech. Imagine Trump typing out his letter about why he's going to fire Comey. Russia, I hate you. Comey, you suck. Cloud. Wait, cloud lifted. You're fired. And then hitting print, but sending it to the wrong printer. Cut to Gary Cohn's office where he picks up the letter. Cohn then takes the letter to Don McGahn, who then takes one look at it and says,
Oh, fudge.
Anyway, that story is from a new book coming out called Kush Inc. It's out on March 19th by Vicky Ward. So check that out. It's going to be a cool book. Then Friday, Trump tweeted that he thinks the Mueller investigation is illegal and there should be no report from special counsel.
Am I going mad? Or did the word think escape your lips?
So Trump's tweet said, quote, so if there was knowingly and acknowledged to be zero crime when the special counsel was appointed, and if the appointment was made based on the fake dossier paid for by crooked Hillary and now disgraced Andrew McCabe, and he still stated all no crime, then the special counsel should have never been appointed, and there should be no Mueller report.
So, logically, if she weighs the same as a duck, she's made of wood. And therefore, a witch! A witch!
All right, first, let me translate what he said for you, because I speak Trump. Trump is alleging that since McCabe and others said there were no crimes known when the appointment of the special counsel happened, that Mueller shouldn't have been appointed. He actually thinks you need proof of a crime before you start an investigation. An investigation is how you find proof of a crime.
Simply stunning.
Not to mention, everyone who has challenged the appointment of Mueller in court has lost. Mueller is batting 1,000 on this. Everyone else is 0. The sad thing is that his base will probably believe him, but that's not the most insane thing he said this week. In an interview with Breitbart, Trump said he has the support of the police, the military, and bikers for Trump, and it would be very bad if they have to get tough on his opponents.
Oh my God.
He's inciting violence again. So he's
pretty much.
And he's specifically calling out to his military and biker supporters and police supporters saying, wouldn't it be very bad? Yeah. God. I don't incite violence. What a dick.
Wow. That's very offensive, I imagine, as a military member to be likened to the biker for Trump crew.
I don't even
Unless they're in it.
I don't even understand how there are bikers for Trump. He got the fucking Harley plant shut down with his stupid tariffs.
That's right. Well, some Trump supporters and all people, I guess there's always a bunch that go against their own interests and don't even realize it sometimes.
Right. That's just like had that speech when he was talking. I forget what city it was. He was like, and we're gonna get rid of this, brand of cars or whatever. And that city had like the biggest factory employing workers.
But were they
city
cheering
for that brand?
Yeah, I feel like they would probably still be cheering. I've seen it. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. Why isn't there just one biker who just stand up at like Sturgis and say, guys, Trump's a bad dude. His tariff shut down Harley. Come on. He probably just gets
It's like, gay. And then just...
Probably get beat up, man.
yeah.
It's
Just
tough.
watch at him.
Poor guy.
Just need one biker for Trump to flip. Also, Friday, guys, we learned that the Russian oligarch Deripaska is suing the U.S. Treasury and Mnuchin, saying he lost over $7.5 billion when the U.S. put sanctions on him, even though they've worked out a deal where they've been lifted and he saved hundreds of millions of dollars in debt. And he's demanding we stop referring to him as an oligarch and start calling him a Russian billionaire instead.
Oh.
Claiming he's a victim over the fight over Russia's role in the 2016 election.
But I mean, wasn't his job like politics?
He's a victim.
Yeah, when you combine being a political figure and being a billionaire in Russia, that's how you get oligarch, right? Isn't that the whole idea? Or are there some? I guess there's some good guys in the bunch. Just the Kremlin we're
Jaleesa,
talking about, though.
Russian billionaire, please. We don't say oligarch on this show.
Right.
No, we totally do. You're a fucking oligarch.
He's an oligarch.
Oh.
I like that. Subtle.
I dare Pasca see that coming. Then Friday, for once, Trump catches a break and a lawsuit against him is dropped. And Jaleesa will have that story for us in Hot Notes right after this quick break. Hey, Mueller junkies. A little while back, I got myself a Buffy comforter, and it's literally the best comforter I've ever owned. And I'm not alone. With over 11,000 reviews, everyone who has one agrees it's the softest and comfiest thing they've ever tried. And it's sustainable. Buffy is made from plant-based fabric, and it's totally breathable so you can sleep at the right temperature no matter what the weather's like. The outside is 100% eucalyptus, which is softer than cotton and actually soothes your skin. It's also hypoallergenic. It blocks dust, mold, and mites that can make it hard for you to get a good night's sleep. And not only that, but it's less wasteful, using 10 times less water to cultivate. But here's my favorite part. The inside is made from 100% BPA-free recycled water bottles. Each comforter keeps about 50 bottles out of landfills and oceans, and so far, Buffy has recycled and reused over 3.5 million bottles. I absolutely love this comforter, and so do the podcats. They make little cocoons in it, and they sleep like spoiled babies. Plus, the fur doesn't stick to the smooth eucalyptus-y goodness, so I love it. And I sleep hot, but the Hubs does not, so this is perfect for us because it keeps us at the right temperature, even with my stupid hot flashes. Thank you, menopause. Buffy believes bedding is personal, so they're offering a complimentary trial. Try a comforter in your own home for 30 days. If you don't love it, return it hassle-free. For $20 off your Buffy comforter, visit Buffy.com and enter promo code AG. That's Buffy.com, promo code AG for $20 off today. You'll be glad you did. All right, welcome back. Hot Notes. All right, Jordan, you've got some stuff on Roger Stone today, but first, Jaleesa, hey, a story about Trump actually winning a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Or did he?
It's very tricky, so I'll break it down. On Friday, we learned that Trump managed to beat the lawsuit against him that claims his campaign assisted in the DNC email hacks. Specifically, U.S. District Attorney Judge Henry Hudson threw out the lawsuit against Trump's presidential campaign that accused them of, quote, conspiring with the Russians and WikiLeaks to steal emails from the DNC in 2016. The plaintiffs behind the lawsuit are Scott Comer and 2 Democratic Party donors named Roy Cockrum and Eric Schoenberg.
Oh, Schoenberg's part of this.
That's right, yeah.
That's right.
And the men claim that the hacked emails have caused damage to their lives due to the fact that they contained personal information such as, quote, their social security numbers, home addresses, and banking relationships. In response to the lawsuit, Trump says that his discharge of duties has been disrupted, whatever that means.
He can't get the rub and tugs.
Yeah, there you go.
His literal discharges at the Orchid Day Spa have been interrupted.
That explains it. He's basically pushing the 1997 Supreme Court decision that says a president cannot be sued while in office. He's also pushing the argument of First Amendment rights. However, the courts haven't been very receptive to that argument. Judge Hudson, on the other hand, allowed the lawsuit to be dismissed because, quote, the plaintiffs lack a substantive cause of action for conspiracy and have failed to plead viable privacy claims under Virginia law. So in other words, these guys didn't have enough evidence to prove that 1, Trump was involved, and 2, that their lives were fucked up as a result of this. So be on the lookout for a Trump tweet that says, totally clears the president. Thank you. However,
exactly.
This is where it gets tricky.
Clears, no collusion.
Yeah. I mean, he's fine.
Can I ask a question really quick?
Oh, totally.
When it says action of conspiracy, what conspiracy is that related to? Is that
Trump in the DNC hack, so the campaign working with WikiLeaks to leak the information?
It is specifically the working with WikiLeaks part.
Yeah. This court is basically saying we aren't going to be looking into whether or not Trump conspired with Russia to hack the DNC and distribute the information on WikiLeaks. That's
because
not
they
our
didn't
charge.
present enough grounds
These
to do
3
it,
men.
it sounded.
Yeah, they needed Mueller on their team or something, man.
Yeah.
It's a bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but keep in mind, the judge didn't rule out that there was no conspiracy, just that the evidence they presented didn't prove it.
Very important.
Yeah.
I don't know if there is conspiracy or not. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't have brought this lawsuit until after a conspiracy was proven.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And he could. I think that some of the counts were dismissed without prejudice. So and I think he did that because if they do find conspiracy,
they can come back.
They can come back and say, see, he did it. It was
totally
him. It was him.
Yeah, so there's a little window there. But this isn't just a blow to the plaintiffs. The media is really worried about this decision, too, because even though Trump won the case, he didn't win it on First Amendment grounds, which still leaves a huge question mark regarding the legality of publishing hacked and stolen documents. In fact, in a separate lawsuit by the DNC, they wrote, the legal question addressed here is one with significant implications for the press, or the free press. Does an active publication that would otherwise be protected by the First Amendment lose that protection simply because a source is acquired unlawfully? So that's the big question here: is can media sources get away with this in the future?
I think media sources can under the Fair Reporting Act.
Right.
I think they're protected by that, which I'll talk about a little bit when we talk about the BuzzFeed article.
Nice.
But like when the BuzzFeed published the dossier, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't stolen or anything, but, that's a Fair Reporting Act. But I can see where their concern is, because basically what this lawsuit is saying is that the First Amendment does not, because Trump was like, I'm allowed to distribute stolen documents because of the First Amendment. And this judge says, no, you're not.
Right.
The First Amendment doesn't protect on you being able to distribute unlawfully.
Which sounds nice, really, but then I guess people are worried that there'll be no other way to get the truth someday besides leaking it, which is just a crazy world to be in right now.
But it is still illegal. Chelsea Manning went to jail for that.
That's right.
And what's his name? Snowden is in
yeah.
exile. So, we gotta. It'll maybe some of these new precedents will be set.
Yeah. Well, and does WikiLeaks, are they considered like a media organization to our government?
They didn't say
would they be protected under that clause? Because it said that the question is whether or not media organizations are protected.
Totally.
To release stolen information.
Yeah, I think what they were saying is, that's what the media is concerned about. What
Right.
this judge was saying is Trump is not protected under the First Amendment to distribute it.
Right. Just in general, I'm just saying
right.
the statement that you said just about the First Amendment applying to media organizations.
Right. I'm not sure.
I wonder if they would even consider them to be a media organization since they're not based here or anything.
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah. What is the definition of a media organization at
Right.
that point? Can we do it as a podcast? Are we a media organization? Or because we know that BuzzFeed can. Oh, that wasn't a stolen document, though.
Right,
so
right.
I don't really have any other precedent to go by that. But.
Yeah, I guess we'll just have to see then.
Yeah, and I think that whether or not conspiracy is found might have a lot to do with, we might see that lawsuit come up against, put some meat on that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jordan, what do you got for on Roger Stone this week?
Yeah, so on Monday, Stone's team filed a response to Judge Jackson If You're Nasty's request for an explanation as to what the hell he was thinking when he released two things that were a clear violation of his gag order. The first violation was the Who Framed Roger Stone picture that he posted on his Instagram that was clearly it was clearly supposed to push the idea that Roger Stone was being framed unfairly in the Mueller probe. So yeah, not supposed to do that. It is hilarious to me, though, that he likened his experience to Roger Rabbit, which is a movie that was endearing to some, but mostly just creepy.
I liked it.
And as a child, it fucked me up.
I miss you, Bob Hoskins.
Yeah. What's the lady's name? The hot one?
Jessica Rabbit.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like also if Roger Stone was any character in that movie, he would not be Roger Rabbit. He would be Judge Doom because he is evil.
Oh, yeah.
And also never blinks.
Oh, that's Rudy Giuliani, though, right? They look similar.
That's true. The second violation was him deciding to re-release a book called The Myth of Russian Collusion, which his counsel was not forthcoming about because they failed to mention that the book had already been selling copies since February 19th. They initially were just trying to claim that it hadn't been released yet. Oh, and the beginning of the new book was modified to refer to Mueller as crooked.
Oh.
And the book used to just be called The Making of a President 2016, but they thought it would be a good idea to change its name to The Myth of Russian Collusion instead, because that won't backfire.
Yeah, kudos for propaganda, I guess. Yeah.
Exactly. Although I must admit that it is a much more Hollywood name, that new title. It's much more enticing.
The Myth.
Yeah, The Making of a President 2016 just sounds like the worst cookbook ever. So when they gave an explanation to the judge about the book, they said they were sorry about not fully disclosing all the details. Sorry. And that they didn't realize that the new intro was going to be an issue. And they also said that the existence of the re-release and the money made from the copies they've already sold doesn't mean the court won't be able to seat an impartial jury. They're basically like, nobody buys our book. Come on.
We're not famous. He changes his level of fame based on how it suits his needs in court.
Remember? He inflates it like they inflate their income.
Or he deflates it when it needs to be deflated. I'm not famous. Nobody knows who the fuck I am. Or I'm so famous. I'm Roger
fucking
Stone.
Roger Stone. Yeah.
That's true. It's if a balloon was a criminal. That's what he does, huh? Now, I, along with most people, I imagine, call bullshit on these explanations, but Judge Jackson on Thursday decided not to change the gag order, much to our dismay, and instead set Stone's trial date for November 5th. And get this, it's been reported that Stone's team has to review 9 terabytes of information before trial, which one of his lawyers said is enough paper to be stacked twice as high as the Washington Monument.
Holy fuck.
Is that real?
Yeah, poor trees.
Wow.
You don't deserve this. We're going to be here a while.
Mueller trees. He grows his own forest just for these purposes.
He makes them with beans.
With the Mueller forest.
Do beans grow trees? No, that's just
Do
a
beans grow
beanstalk.
trees?
That's not. Squirrels grow trees. That's what I learned from Sarah Silverman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you for that Stone update. Squirrels grow trees.
Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you for listening.
All right, so this week, guys, The Guardian got a hold of a new book coming out March 19th called Kush Inc. by Vicky Ward. I mentioned it top of the show, or not the top maybe, but earlier in the show. When I was talking about Trump printing out the Comey firing letter on the wrong printer. So in this book, some of our beans came true. Check out this clip from episode 18. The Daily Beast broke a story on Friday that Kushner's dad asked a Qatari firm to lend the Kushners money to shore up 666 Fifth Avenue. We've talked about the 666 building. It's the office building that's the centerpiece of the Kushner real estate empire, and it is $1 billion in debt. And that loan is coming due in 2 months, and Kushner and his family have been scrambling to get money to pay this loan
I had no
down.
idea the deadline was coming.
And that's what the Citigroup and Apollo $500 million loans went into that office building. And Kushner's dad went to Qatar and asked them, can we have some money and to put into this office building? And Qatar looked at the office building because he bought it in 2007, right before the bubble burst. So that was dumb.
Oh, yeah.
And Qatar went, no, thank you. And that upset Kushner. But what's interesting is that when that deal fell apart, Kushner backed a Saudi blockade of Qatar. basically teaming up with Saudi Arabians to throw a blockade up against Qatar.
Mm-hmm.
And Qatar is one of our key allies in the fight against ISIL in the region.
Oh.
That's national security level shit. We have thousands of troops in Qatar. But his not getting a loan, and now it's not proven that it's connected.
But to him, it was clearly more important.
But whether he did it because of that or not, but he did advocate for the blockade against Qatar, and it happened to be less than a month after Qatar refused to lend him money on that building.
Interesting. So we'll see if that...
Also, yeah, we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Mueller's looking into it. And also the securities, the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, dropped an inquiry into Apollo Global Management less than a month after they agreed to lend Kushner $180 million. So go back and listen to episode 18 because it's all about Pudding Club Kushner. And I have a feeling we're going to hear a lot more about Kushner in the next couple weeks. Anyhow, in this new book, we learned that around that time, Kush was confronted by Tillerson and Gary Cohn, who blamed Kush for Trump's abrupt endorsement of a Saudi blockade against Qatar. Even though they're an ally in the region, we have one of our largest bases there with quite a few military stationed there. Shortly thereafter, Qatar helped to bail out Kushner from his devil building, 666 Fifth Avenue. The Guardian also published a piece this week about Kush and how his friendship with Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, is at the heart of U.S.-Saudi relations. And as we know, Kushner, Flynn, and a whole host of Trump allies have pushed to provide the Saudis with technology to build nuclear reactor plants that could put them on the path to developing nuclear weapons if they want to enrich their own uranium, which they definitely do. Which is dumb because it's way less than half the price to get it enriched elsewhere and shipped back to you. So the fact that you want to enrich your own uranium means you want to make weapons. So let's go over a few things we discussed regarding Kushner on the pod. First, way back in April of 2017, Kushner's dad asked the Qataris for a loan, and they said, no, you're stupid. Get out of here. 2 months later, Saudi Arabia throws up the blockade, much to the chagrin of Cohn and Tillerson. Incidentally, that's right around the time Jamal Khashoggi left Saudi Arabia after he trash-talked Trump. And then he started writing for the Washington Post that fall, a few months later. Then remember when we talked about Kushner stealing intel from the president's daily brief about traitors to the Saudi crown prince, and he gave that information, he gave that intel to MBS when he took a trip to Riyadh? That happened. That happened in the fall. And around the same time, Kush gets a $60 million loan from the Saudis. And in November, Mohammed Bonesaw purged all the traitors to the crown that Kush told him about the month before, putting him in jail and stuff and probably killing him. It wasn't until a year later that the Qataris gave Kush his massive loan to help him bail out of the 666 Fifth Avenue property. And shortly thereafter, the blockade was softened.
That's right. They're not even trying to hide it.
No. Now, we know that Mueller was looking into the Qatar loans, and we also know he looked into loans from Apollo and Citigroup to Kushner. Remember those two executives that he met at the White House and then got loans from? Not to mention the time Kush dined with the executives from Ongbang Bank. That's a big Chinese bank that was also considering buying a chunk of 666 Fifth Avenue. And according to the new book, Kush was rebuked by Gary Cohn for that move as well. Something else we brought up in episode 18, along with the fact that the U.S. had intercepted communications from 4 countries saying Kush was an easy target, including China, United Arab Emirates, Mexico, and Israel. And one of the crown princes even saying, he's such a rube, I have him in my pocket. And as you all know, my number one pick for the secret company from country A is the Qatar Investment Authority. And if it's not that, it's got to be any number of companies that lent Kushner money in exchange for secrets, which is why his security clearance, which should have never been granted, is now under investigation. One of the many reasons they didn't want to grant it in the first place. Incidentally, there was another filing this week in the super secret subpoena battle with Company A, or the secret company from Country A. But as usual, it was mostly redacted. There were no new hints about who it could be or what company it could be or what country it could be. But we did learn that SCOTUS will be discussing whether to take up the case in a closed-door conference on March 22nd. So expect Kushner's name to start popping up in the news in the coming weeks. To borrow a line from Trading Places, which I have watched again this week, I think the universe is about to heap a little more misfortune on those narrow shoulders. We'll be right back. Hey, Mueller junkies. Today's episode is brought to you by Brewmate, the fastest-growing drinkware brand in the world. When founder Dylan Jacob, not to be confused with Jacob Dylan, lead singer of the Wallflowers and Bob Dylan's son, But when Dylan Jacob turned 21, he quickly discovered that warm alcohol sucks. I think we all figured that out at 21. So he created Brewmate. The mission at Brewmate is to create the perfect drinking experience by ensuring every sip of your favorite adult beverage is just as refreshing as the last, and that is genius. From insulated coolers for slim and craft cans, to unbreakable no-zing glasses, to insulated canteens that keep a full bottle of wine at the perfect temperature for over 24 hours, Brewmate offers a diverse line of drinkware that ensures a perfect match for everyone. For real, they have a huge selection of colors and styles and finishes for everyone from me, the wine-drinking, book-nerd-knitting cat lady, to my hubs, the beardy outdoor whiskey guy. There's no metallic aftertaste, which is huge for me, and all the Brewmate products are good to go in glass-free zones like the hot tub or the beach. No more lugging around coolers and ice. With Brewmate, you can get rid of the fallen soldiers and satellite beers, the half-drunk beverages that just got too warm. No more wasted wine, no more plastic cups filling our landfills and ending up in our oceans, plus a spill-proof top for wine glasses, which speaks to me directly. Brewmate is giving you a special discount of 15% off your first order when you go to brewmate.com and use code AG. That's 15% when you use code AG at brewmate.com. Don't let the summer heat ruin your drink. Go to brewmate.com and beat the heat this summer. Get 15% off your first order by using my code AG at brewmate.com. That's BRUMATE.com, code AG. You'll be glad you did. All right, guys, this was not a last-minute story because it dropped Thursday, but to me it was the biggest story of the week, so I thought it worthy of sabotage. Plus, it might inform your fantasy indictment draft. Remember a long time ago when we reported that a Russian fellow named Gubarev sued BuzzFeed for publishing the Steele dossier, saying it was defaming? It was defaming him.
Right.
Last December, we reported that BuzzFeed won that suit because the judge ruled it was protected by fair report privilege. That's what I was talking about a little bit earlier when you were doing your hot note, Jaleesa. Mm-hmm. That immunizes a party for defamatory matter that appears in accurate and complete report of an official action or proceeding. So yay, they win. Then a little while later, we told you guys that the judge was going to unseal documents in that case. Well, that happened Thursday, and it was delightful, you guys. I have to say, it was fucking delightful. Apparently, BuzzFeed hired some folks to investigate what the dossier alleged. Since they were being sued for defamation, if they could prove what the dossier said were true, then they aren't defaming him, right? That's the thing about a defamation lawsuit or a libel suit. If it's true, you can't sue. And that rhymes, and that's weird. So the dossier alleged that Russian spies used Gubarev's Florida web hosting company, Webzilla, to hack into the DNC. Well, Anthony Ferrante, he's a former FBI and cybersecurity expert, and he's the dude BuzzFeed hired to investigate the claims in the dossier. And he wrote a whole report for BuzzFeed for court, and that was part of the unsealed documents. And he was able to prove that Gubarev's company was indeed used by Russian hackers to break into the DNC. So this is amazing because it shows a whole nother entrance point for Russian meddling and hacking, but also that yet another part of the dossier has been corroborated. To date, nothing in the dossier has been disproven. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, just waiting for that PP tape. I know it's 50-50, but I'm holding out that this is a solid report. Yeah.
All right.
Or a liquid report. I don't know what pun works.
Oh,
that's dumb.
I
I'm
see
sorry.
what you did there. All right, guys, are you ready for the Fantasy Indictment League?
Yes.
I'm gonna be indicted!
No, wait, it's gonna be okay.
Indicted!
Honey, Dick.
Indicted!
Honey.
I'm gonna be indicted!
Hold it, they can't. It's gonna be okay. Just calm down.
I can't calm down, I'm gonna be indicted!
All right, guys, this week I get to go first. I'm fucking excited. I'm saying Manafort.
I knew it.
Oh, man. Okay.
Somebody's gonna fucking indict him on some other shit, and I'm really excited about it.
Okay, who's next?
I believe you, right? Oh, no, usually we go
It's
a different...
you, Jaleesa.
Okay. I'm going to go with Weisselberg.
All right. I'm going with Fabrizio. Tony Fabrizio.
Tony Fabrizio. You need a poll? I got you.
You need Febreze? That was stupid.
I always think Febreze when I see his name.
Right? Fabrizio.
Mm-hmm. Like he smells good. He must.
He makes teenagers' rooms smell delightful. I'm going to go with Assange for me.
Okay.
Okay.
I will do Sherry Dillon. She's one of the people who...
She's one of the lawyers.
Yeah, who might have lied about Stormy Daniels. That's a Mueller-related thing.
She definitely lied about Stormy Daniels.
Tight.
Speaking of, did you see Michael Avenatti dropped her as a client?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness, really? Officially?
Probably because he's gearing up for a presidential run or something, huh?
I thought she dropped him, but
oh, maybe the headline. Anyway,
I don't think an Avenatti
I'll
will
fact check
win right
myself.
now.
Felix Sater.
Sater, nice.
That's a good one.
Is that me?
Yeah.
WikiLeaks, please.
Oh
yes.
Trump org.
Trump org, good one.
Right. No one did more Stone.
Nope, not yet.
Actually, I'm gonna do Eric Prince.
Nice, that's a good one. He's fucked.
Yeah.
My turn. I'm gonna do the Trump campaign.
Wait, the committee, like the
The campaign
Like
to
Tom
elect
Barrack?
President Trump.
Oh wait, no, that's the inaugural committee.
The Trump campaign is an entity.
Got it.
I'm doing with
That was
the
my
whole
next pick.
campaign.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Brittany Kaiser.
Good one.
Question: if we're talking Rico now, can we do a whole group and say Rico?
No,
that would be
you gotta do
too
people.
easy.
Okay. Then I will do Donald Trump Jr.
Yeah, he was gonna be my next one. Is that to me now?
Yeah.
How many do we have left?
One.
Kush.
All right.
Now, the Trump campaign is different from the Trump org, is different from the Trump Foundation.
Okay.
Three different entities.
The campaign is the inaugural, right?
No.
It's not? Okay.
The inaugural is a whole different thing, too.
Oh.
The inaugural is the fund to pay for the inauguration.
Then
Yeah,
I'll
that definitely had
I'll
money
do the
funneled
inaugural
through.
then. Yeah, that was my pick. Okay, cool.
Trump inaugural for you?
Correct, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I will do Superseding Stone.
Nice.
Okay.
All right, that's the Fantasy Indictment League this week. If you want to play, head to our closed Facebook group. Just search for, what is it, Friends of Justice?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not a patron and you want to play and become one, patreon.com/MillerSheWrote. Guys, I'm so excited. We have Natasha Bertrand back on. She's going to be with us in D.C. on March 29th as our special guest. And today we talked about all sorts of stuff, and I think you're going to really like the interview. So let's play the interview. And joining us for the interview today is the incomparable staff writer for The Atlantic, covering national security and politics. She's an MSNBC contributor. She'll be joining us live in Washington, D.C. at the Miracle Theater March 29th. Please welcome Natasha Bertrand. Natasha, thanks for coming back to Mueller, She Wrote.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
All right, so a couple things I wanted to get into with you today. It appears that the Republican House Judiciary Committee ranking member, Doug Collins of Georgia, I think, he's been busy this week, kind of unilaterally releasing totally unredacted transcripts from congressional interviews from people including Bruce Orr, Peter Strzok, and Lisa Page from last summer. So first, I was wondering if you could give everybody just a really brief background on who Strzok, Page, and Orr are, for those folks who maybe aren't familiar with them, though I think our listeners are.
Yeah, sure. So Pete Strzok was one of the top counterintelligence officials at the FBI. And he was the one that actually opened the Russia investigation back in July of 2016. He was the head of the Russia investigation, the counterintelligence side. And he's a really important figure because he was really there from the very beginning, kind of sounding the alarm quietly about the connections between the Trump campaign and Russia that they were seeing during the campaign. So that's him. And then Lisa Page is actually the general counsel, or she was general counsel to Andy McCabe, who was the deputy director of the FBI. And she was also involved in all of these very high level discussions about the Russia investigation, and about which steps they were going to take in a very kind of unprecedented situation where you had, the members of a very high profile campaign, the next potentially Republican president, being investigated for a potential conspiracy. So they were there in the thick of it from the very beginning. Pete Strzok and Lisa Page were also having an affair, and they were sending text messages to each other throughout the course of the investigation. And of course, simultaneously to the Russia probe, the Clinton email investigation was going on and kind of wrapping up at the same time. So a lot of controversy over that. And Pete Strzok was also involved in that as well. So they were talking, they were exchanging private texts using FBI issued devices. And when the Inspector General of the DOJ launched an investigation into how the Clinton email investigation was handled, those text messages got swept up and reviewed, and both of them, while Pete Strzok was promptly removed from the special counsel's office, Lisa Page had actually left even before that, but Pete Strzok was removed from the special counsel investigation, kind of parked in HR at the FBI, and he wasn't really involved in the Russia probe from that point onward. And then fast forward to last summer, he was kind of unceremoniously fired from the FBI. It's unclear still on what grounds they actually fired him, because there is no specific rules against, expressing your private opinions in text messages, which, they were doing. They were criticizing Trump. They were criticizing Hillary Clinton. They were criticizing Bernie Sanders all throughout the election. But it's still unclear what basis the FBI used to actually fire them. So anyway, he left the FBI, testified before Congress publicly. It was a very high profile testimony, very contentious. And fast forward a few weeks, I believe, after his public testimony, or it might have even been a few days after his public testimony, he testified in private. And that is the testimony that got leaked by the ranking member here of the Judiciary Committee. So long story short, these are two people who testified that they were just doing their patriotic duty. They were working in good faith on this investigation because they seriously thought that there was a very, very grave national security concern that was posed by the people on Trump's campaign, potentially colluding with the Russians. And the transcripts really, reflect that. And so it's very kind of odd that the Republicans chose to release them and allow people to have this window into how the FBI was actually thinking about these things.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about that, too, because I've read these transcripts, and now I'm trying to figure out why Doug Collins thought this would help the Republicans' attempt to stonewall this investigation, or at least, because I know that these are three of their biggest punching bags, or Strzok and Page, right? So this is like where their one conspiracy theory floats around, these guys in the dossier. But I can't even begin to crawl inside of his head and figure out what his motive was, because like you said, this pretty much it's kind of backfiring on him.
Yeah, totally. And we should note, the president has been using this. He's been watching Fox News. He hasn't been actually reading the transcripts, so he's been reading the coverage of the transcripts. And the way that they're spinning it is that, both Strzok and Page were kind of ambivalent about whether or not a crime was actually committed. But of course, that was never their mandate. Strzok is a counterintelligence investigator. The whole purpose of opening a counterintelligence investigation is to investigate whether or not, potentially a threat to national security exists, not necessarily to find a crime. So that's how they're looking at it as well. If the investigators didn't actually find hard evidence of a crime from the get-go, then what basis did they have to open the investigation? And that's why the president is saying that the predicate really wasn't there. Now, of course, their argument is that actually we were so alarmed by the possibility that members of Trump's campaign were working with the Russians, working with a foreign adversary to, unlawfully win the election here, is what made us take this so seriously and what made us open a full-blown counterintelligence investigation. And that investigation, of course, is ongoing. I think that what the Republicans are trying to do here is they are, they don't necessarily, I think they don't necessarily benefit anymore from kind of picking and choosing different parts of the transcript that they want to leak, because people were getting very anxious and people wanted to see the full kind of accounting of what, the deep state conspiracy might be. But in the end, this really does not help their narrative. And people close to Page and Strzok were telling me over the last year or so, hey, we want our transcripts to be released because it doesn't help this conspiracy theory by Republicans and Trump that we were working to overthrow him or we were working to thwart his candidacy, because guess what? None of us ever leaked it.
Yeah, that was one of the things that stood out to me in the Lisa Page testimony. And we've been saying this and you've been saying this. We've all been saying this for a long time, because when she was asked if there was anyone if anyone in the FBI had leaked to the public that Trump was under investigation, she said no. Then they followed up with, well, if the FBI were a deep state trying to take down the president, couldn't they have just leaked that information? And Strzok had gone into this too, but this was in Page's testimony, and she's like, yeah. And she followed up with a reminder that the FBI is a hugely conservative organization. And so I mean, I guess that, the Republicans could pick certain little parts of it out, like the part where Strzok texted that Trump being president would be fucking terrifying, unquote. But he went into the context of that statement in his testimony. So why you would leak the entire thing is just beyond. I guess you're just kind of banking on them not reading it.
Right. You can say that you were transparent and that you released the whole thing, and count on people like Donald Trump to, still selectively quote from it and still spin it, which of course is exactly what he's been doing. But yeah, I mean, this is a really important point that deserves to be made over and over again, which is that, Hillary Clinton is the one who was really damaged by the FBI's actions in the run-up to the election, not Donald Trump. If anything, Donald Trump was protected by the FBI. Now, not necessarily on purpose. I mean, it was purposeful because they wanted to protect the integrity of the investigation, but it wasn't because, it wasn't necessarily because they were trying to, help him win. That was just the nature of the counterintel investigation. But Hillary Clinton had the unfortunate experience of being hated by enough people in the FBI that they actually had to worry about the possibility that leaks would happen with regard to the new emails that were found on Anthony Weiner's laptop. So that also was a major pressure point on Jim Comey to, quote unquote, reopen the investigation into her emails a couple days before the election. Now, if that hatred and that disdain for Clinton weren't there in the FBI, and if it weren't so well expressed, I mean, this is according to people who, have told me that in the days leading up to the election, weeks, months leading up to the election, people were telling, top counterintelligence officials, make sure you get Hillary Clinton. And I think that was actually reflected in Lisa Page's testimony as well. That is really, really important here because, well, as we'll all recall, Rudy Giuliani was out there in the days before the election saying there's going to be something big to come on Hillary Clinton, kind of teasing this, new batch of information about her. That really was not coming out of the FBI about Trump, right? So they were, on the one hand, conducting this very serious investigation into whether or not the candidate posed a national security threat to the country, while at the same time having to manage the anti-Clinton animus in the FBI to make sure that, it didn't explode after the election and be seen as delegitimizing the entire process. So if anything, we just need to remember here that the FBI, as Lisa Page said, is a very conservative organization by its nature.
Yeah, and how do you square Trump's whole deal with, talking about the deep state and the FBI when they in fact didn't leak that he was under investigation at all, with his assertion that the whole reason he fired Comey was because of his unfair treatment of Hillary Clinton? It doesn't add up at all.
No, none of it makes sense, and I don't think that they care whether or not it makes sense. I mean, just looking at this and I think it's really amazing also that Lindsey Graham is the senator who blocked the resolution to produce Mueller's report in full to the public that passed in the House. He blocked that in the Senate because he said that there still wasn't a full accounting of why the FBI cleared Hillary Clinton of wrongdoing and why, the potential FISA abuses by the FBI haven't been fully investigated. I mean, it's apples and oranges here. And it just doesn't, if you're thinking that the FBI was really out to get the president, then you have to wonder why was there a story in the New York Times 8 days before the election saying that the FBI had found no clear links to Trump? I mean, it's totally nonsensical, and it really threw people off the scent, I think, who could have really benefited from knowing that this investigation was going on, that all of these, Russia's election interference that we've been hearing about for months and months was potentially tied to the campaign itself. I mean, that to, I think, any voter would have been at least comparable, if not a bigger deal than Hillary Clinton's email scandal.
Yeah, specifically because Trump had said over and over again that you can't have a president that's under investigation. And also, we have to remember that when the IG report came out on Comey for this, we were supposed to also get an IG report on the FBI New York field office, and that has been held back for months and months and months, and I have to, you have to wonder why. The IG report on the FBI New York field office leaks about the Weiner laptop. There was an investigation done on that, and we still don't have it. It was presumably finished when Comey's was finished, or McCabe's, both. No, Comey. But
Right.
we still haven't seen that. So
It's a total mystery, and there were enough people in the original IG report that the IG produced about the way the Clinton email investigation was handled. There were enough people, high-level officials, that expressed concern about the impact that anti-Clinton animus and the possibility of leaks had on how the investigation was conducted in the days before the election, that it is really surprising that we haven't gotten a resolution on that. But at the same time, the people who were fired by the FBI, for example, Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, for expressing their personal opinions in text messages, aren't necessarily the ones that want to push the issue, right? Because they don't want to make it seem like the personal opinions of FBI officials matter in terms of how they actually conduct their investigations. So their hands are also tied with regard to how much accountability they demand of this. Because in theory, it shouldn't matter. In theory, you should have, career agents, career officials just carrying out the investigation in a way that is consistent with the normal procedures and protocol. And that is what the Peter Strzok's and Lisa Pages of the world were arguing that the FBI is all about, that they are trained to not let their personal opinions get in the way of investigations. And so if they were to turn around and say, well, look at all of the anti-Clinton officials in the FBI and what was their impact on this, then they might be accused of the same thing. I think that, the emphasis, though, on the leaking by the FBI New York office to, potentially to people like Giuliani, that is where it gets a lot hairier, and that is where it's less black and white, right? So I await that report, and I think everyone is waiting to be able to hold Rudy Giuliani accountable for that as well, because he has walked that back. But if you listen to his comments from that period, it's very obvious.
yeah, it's pretty clear to us too. So we anxiously await that report too. Also, big news today. It appears that Mueller is not done with Rick Gates. I tweeted out yesterday, I don't think he's done with him because there's just two, even if you're just talking about the inaugural investigation, which he was the deputy of. So if they asked for another delay in sentencing, I think this is the fourth or fifth time they've asked for a delay, another 60 days, because he's still cooperating, quote, in several ongoing investigations. So how does that square with all the reports we keep hearing that Mueller's done, Mueller's finished, and his report's coming out yesterday?
Yeah, it's still really hard to tell. I mean, I think the interesting thing about Rick Gates is the extensions of his status reports and of his sentencing, et cetera, it has been that he's been helping with multiple ongoing investigations. So it's not just, that he's helping with stuff about the inaugural committee, which is what a lot of people were saying today is possibly what's holding this up. It's that he's helping with a wide array of things that perhaps New York prosecutors, special counsel prosecutors, DC prosecutors are looking into. And so in that respect, I can kind of see, Mueller wrapping up and allowing Rick Gates's sentencing to go forward, or finishing his report, and with Rick Gates's cooperation and with all of his input, while still, leaving Rick Gates's cooperation with other prosecutors in other districts open. So I don't necessarily think this means that, Mueller is going to go on for another 6 months, right? But I do think it's definitely a signal that the core of the investigation isn't necessarily over yet, but also that, Rick Gates could be very helpful in terms of spinoffs that Mueller has given to New York prosecutors and DC, for example. But it's a very interesting development. I don't think anyone expected it. I mean, I certainly thought that his sentencing was going to be set today. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Right. And we keep wondering, the Mueller investigation, Mueller can be finished with his part without the Mueller investigation ending. It's just not his.
Right.
I mean, there's 27 million different little tendrils he shot off by handing things off, and he gave full power U.S. attorneys to everybody working for him, so they're all just Muellers basically running around. But I guess we'll find out. But finally, because this kind of leads into the piece that you put out this morning in The Atlantic. It's an excellent piece, by the way. It says Mueller might not be done with Manafort yet either. So given the news that Weissman is leaving, and he was really big on the Manafort case, at least in the money laundering and tax fraud stuff, we've been trying to find parity between what we know from the public reporting and what still has not been charged, what Manafort still hasn't been charged with. We've been saying for a long time, I always thought there would be superseding indictments or additional indictments on Manafort for crimes of collusion, as he was charged by Rosenstein with. And I've talked about multiple clues related to these additional charges, and so did you in this piece. And I was hoping you could maybe touch on a couple of those clues and how you see this playing out.
Yeah, so the biggest clue, I think, was when Andrew Weissman told Judge Amy Berman Jackson last month that the issue of whether or not Paul Manafort he said the issue of the August 2nd, 2016 meeting very much went to the heart of what the special counsel was investigating.
Right. The August 2nd meeting didn't have anything to do with tax fraud and money laundering.
Right. It went to conspiracy. It went to collusion. And so for him to say that, and for the content of the August 2nd meeting to have been revealed only inadvertently because of a redaction error by Manafort's lawyers, and not because Mueller's team put it out, consciously and on purpose, is a big clue that they were keeping that up their sleeve and that they are hanging on to that for something potentially bigger. I think that the reason potentially that they went after Manafort for bank and tax fraud and foreign agent violations is because they were expecting him to flip, right? And they wanted to know everything that he knew about the extent of the conspiracy between the campaign and Russia. That obviously didn't work out because Manafort lied throughout the course of his cooperation deal. But what that also means is that it's still very much an open question what prosecutors are going to do with the information they gleaned, for example, from Rick Gates about the Russia conspiracy element that Manafort engaged in during the election. And so that's still a big, open question. And what former prosecutors I spoke to told me is that it's very possible. It's not necessarily likely, but it's very possible that Manafort will be included in some kind of bigger RICO charge, bigger conspiracy charge that will perhaps be leveled against the entire Trump campaign when this is all over. Short of that, Manafort could still be, discussed in Mueller's report, which would mean that he still, there will still be a full accounting of his role in a conspiracy. But either way, we're going to have to get some kind of explanation for why did he give the polling data over? Why was he talking to Kalimnik about a peace plan that would have been favorable to Russia? And why was he offering Oleg Deripaska, the Russian oligarch, private briefings on the campaign? And did that ever actually happen? And what's the connection there? I mean, there's just so much left of the Paul Manafort story. And so I think that, saying that he's going to jail for the next 7 years and that's the end of it, and Mueller's done and can wash his hands of it.
Who do you think, if the possibility, maybe not the likelihood, but the possibility that there's a big RICO conspiracy waiting to be dropped on all of us, what office would that come out of? I presume it would come out of Mueller's office because that was his main job.
Yeah, and this is something that, the legal experts I spoke to also kind of disagreed on. I mean, some said that, Mueller would, I mean, if he wanted to, of course, he could bring that conspiracy charge. The question is whether he wants to, or whether he wants to just leave that big conspiracy charge to the Southern District or DC. But it's certainly possible. And some people have also speculated that could be the grand finale, right? That maybe instead of a report, he could just bring a broad conspiracy RICO charge against the entire campaign and name the president as an unindicted co-conspirator. And that could also kind of get around you can't indict a sitting president question. So it could go either way, but I think I think that it would be unwise to rule out the possibility that we could see some kind of RICO conspiracy charge against the Trump campaign.
Cool. Well, yeah, that's what everyone's kind of hoping for, is some big grand finale speaking indictment of the rest. I just want to be prepared in case that's not how it happens. And I would assume that if that were the case, that would happen before a report were issued and not after, but that could not be the way as well. So I don't think he can issue his report until he's done. Who knows? I don't know. I guess it's just, as it's always been, we'll find out. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. We're really excited to see you March 29th. Again, that's in Miracle Theater in D.C. A couple tickets left for that. Staff writer for The Atlantic, MSNBC contributor Natasha Bertrand. Natasha, thanks again for joining us. All right, guys, that's the show. Thanks for hanging in. It was a long show. It's been a crazy week. Stay up to date with our full-length, ad-free midweek episodes Wednesday nights and the ad-free MSW Book Club Thursday nights. Both of those are for patrons only, so become one now at patreon.com/MuellerSheWrote. We're about to start releasing daily updates for patrons while we develop our new show, The Daily Beans, which you will get ad-free for being a Mueller, She Wrote patron. And we cannot wait to see you guys live. Get your tickets now. DC, March 29th, just around the corner. We'll be at the Miracle Theater there, and the Bell House in Brooklyn, March 30th, Largo in Los Angeles, April 18th, and the Parkway Theater in Minneapolis, June 14th. Before we sign off, guys, I wanted to take a moment to send our deepest sympathies and love to all those affected by the act of terrorism carried out this week in New Zealand. And I want to apologize on behalf of the American government for not denouncing white nationalism and white supremacy in the face of this terrible tragedy. Please know that the support and the love of the American people are with you. Do you guys have any final thoughts?
I thought that was perfect. Yeah, it's really crazy, but I feel like we have a great community, like on the Friends of Justice page or on Twitter, like everyone's just so supportive and positive. So, yeah, you guys make me happy.
Great. You make me happy, Jaleesa.
Aw, you both make me happy.
You make
Jordan
me happy
doesn't,
too.
though. Fuck Jordan.
Yeah. Fuck me. Yeah, I think it's crazy that the sort of white nationalism, it's not regional anymore.
It's
I
global.
think McCabe said it in his book. He said, like, globalism isn't just Google or something. Like,
Yeah.
it's everything, and it's everywhere, including this. So no matter where you are, if it's on the internet, in person, do whatever you can to join the right causes and stand against that stuff when you can. And like you said, we support them, and everyone has their backs right now.
Yeah, speak out. Keep your head on a swivel. This has been awesome. You guys, please be kind to each other. Stop the hate. You know what I mean? Love each other and get out there and do what you need to do to make our country and now the world, and it always should have always been the world, a better place. So thank you. I've been AG.
I've been Jaleesa Johnson.
I've been Jordan Coburn.
And this is Mueller, She Wrote. Mueller, She Wrote is produced and engineered by AG with editing and logo design by Jaleesa Johnson. Our marketing consultant and social media manager is Sarah Lee Steiner, and our subscriber and communications director is Jordan Coburn. Fact-checking and research by AG, and research assistance by Jaleesa Johnson and Jordan Coburn. Our merchandising managers are Sarah Lee Steiner and Sarah Hirschberger Valencia. Our web design and branding are by Joelle Reeder with Moxie Design Studios, and our website is MuellerSheWrote.com.